Hey there, I'm the Old Rambling Nerd, and this is History of Comic Book Movies, Episode 2, Who, Why, Where. Today we're going to look at the Superman films of the 70s and the 80s, and how they laid the groundwork for the comic book movies that would follow. When I was in high school, I had a history teacher who said that all of philosophy could be boiled down to 3 questions. Who am I? Why am I here? And where am I going? Now I'll leave it up to the philosophers to decide whether those 3 questions encapsulate the discipline or not. But I think with just a little tweaking, they do encapsulate the journey of a good superhero film franchise. Now we're going to have to limit this to individual characters, so team books, the X-Men, the Avengers don't quite fit into this mold. And it's got to be a series that actually went to 3 whole films, same continuity, without rebooting. Or a soft reboot, or a mini reboot, or a not really reboot, or we're going to do something else over here, but this one kind of counts, boot. And we're going to have to tweak the 3rd question just a little bit. So for today, we're going to look at Superman 1 through 3. We'll get to episode 4, don't worry, it's coming. Episodes 1 through 3 with these questions. Who am I? Why am I here? And where do we go from here? The first question, who am I? It's pretty straightforward. If you've seen a superhero film, you've probably seen an origin story. A good origin story is going to take the character from a before to an after. It's going to take them on that journey one of 3 ways, some combination thereof. They're going to get powers, they're going to get morality or a conscience, and they're going to get a quest or a goal. In the 78 Donner film, before he goes and becomes Superman, before he gets the goal and the quest and the uniform, he's just a kid out in the farmland kicking footballs in the next county and hitting on Lana Lang. Unsuccessfully, I might add. He already has his powers, and he already has his morality. Now, some people will say that, spoiler alert, for a film that's 38 years old. Some people will say that Superman got his conscience at the death of Jonathan Kent. He already had his morality. He had that from growing up. What was right and what was wrong were already his. That was part of who he was. He had his power since childhood. But now Superman needs to know, well, what is it that I'm going to do? You can point back to the death of Jonathan Kent as when Superman realizes that the world isn't perfect. It's the moment when he realizes that somebody has to stand up, even though he can't save everybody. That he still needs a quest. He still needs a goal. It's in the Fortress of Solitude that Superman gets his goal. He gets his quest. He becomes who Superman will be. That's what Superman stands for. Right? In Superman, Man of Steel, what does the S stand for? It stands for hope. Because that's what Superman stands for. He stands for hope. That's his ethos. That's his identity. That's who he becomes. So that's the first question. It answers, who am I? And that's how Superman 1978 answers that question. The second question, why am I here, is really asking the question, am I here for myself, or am I here to be the hero? And that question of, am I here for myself, gets wrapped up in the trope of, can I have the girl? Can I have the wife and the 2.5 kids and the white picket fence? And Superman decides he wants Lois Lane. He's going to retire from being Superman. He's going to be with Lois Lane. He goes so far as to actually give up his powers, because there's a special plot device machine inside the Fortress of Solitude, and he gives up his powers. And he spends the night with Lois in the Fortress of Solitude. But then, crazily enough, plot dictates that there's a threat so big that only Superman can handle it. And he must choose. Do I defend the world, or do I stay with Lois? And of course, Superman, being Superman, decides to defend the world. And Superman rejects the notion of being with Lois, which now has become the trope. It's become the thing that almost every superhero film going forward, Spider-Man 2, Batman Returns, The Dark Knight. So those second films all play with this idea of, can I be the superhero Or can I be regular, mild-mannered me and get the girl? And each one makes the choice to either stay the hero or stay with the girl. Spoiler alert, they always stay the hero because we need to make more movies. And that brings us to question number 3. Where do we go from here? They've already answered the question, who is this guy? What can he do? What does he stand for? They've already answered the question, will he defend us when the chips are down? So now you have to answer the question is, what if Superman turned evil? He has the powers. He has to keep the powers. But does he have to do it for good? Can he be selfish with powers? And that brings us to the third question. Where do we go from here? There's a fundamental issue of adapting comic books to movies, because movies, by their nature, are finite. They have a beginning, a middle, and an end. Characters learn their lessons, plot threads are wrapped up, everything is tied up in a little bow, and the world is closed. This is why sequels often aren't as good as the original. Because either the characters learn their lesson and there's no conflict, which is a boring movie, or you crack the world open and the characters didn't learn anything and they have to go through it all again. Well, that means that the first one didn't count, that they didn't learn their lesson, because here they are again. Now, it's been done well. There are good sequels out there. Comic books are perpetually in the second act. There's a reason that the heroes don't die for more than 10 years. There's a reason that the bad guys never die or come back to life or get out of jail or get out of the asylum or whatever happens. They keep coming back. They keep coming back. Because you got to sell a book the next month and the month after that and the month after that. Comic books are always in the second act. The hero now has to ask the question, what kind of hero am I going to be? Who am I? Well, I'm this guy with his powers, this set of skills, this whatever it is that makes the hero the hero. I've got this costume and I can't get rid of it. I can't have a normal life. I have to keep the powers. Who am I? Why am I here? So where do we go from here? And Superman 3 answers the question, and I think a really good way that a couple other films have tried and not quite gotten to. Now, Superman 3, also not a perfect movie. It does hold the distinction as being one of only 2 Superman films. Of all the Superman films ever put on the big screen, they have Lex Luthor and or Zod in them. The exceptions are Man of Steel doesn't have Lex Luthor, and Superman 3 doesn't have Lex Luthor or any Kryptonians outside of Superman. And so he fights giant computer and kind of sort of Richard Pryor. It's not the best movie, but there's this great scene in Superman 3. If you allow me just a moment, I'll present it to you. I am your good side. I am your evil side. Ah! The good side has won. So here's my theory. Every time you make a superhero film, you're looking at Superman franchise. Who am I? What's your origin story? Why am I here? Lose the powers, get the powers, subplot with a girl. And the third one is, they're fighting a mirrored version of themselves. This one's a little bit trickier to trace through. We'll look at that as we get to some films that got to their third film. Which ones follow this pattern, which one don't. But that's my theory. Tell me what you think. We got comments below, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And as always, bye, Joe. But it's in the Fortress of Solitude. That was way too inside of a joke. I am Horace. Woo!